All right, we're good?
Go.
All right.
It's your show, man.
I know.
You're ready to get this famous intro all lined up, ready to go. I'm ready. I'm
ready.
blowing my mind.
All right.
I like the shaking. It's nice.
What?
I'm about to go, and every time I'm about to go, you just keep interrupting me. This is a true episode of Pickup Soccer. Anyway, people, hello and welcome to a special edition of Pickup Soccer. My name is Evan Ream. Today we have something a little different for you. Perhaps more than any other countries in the world, the soccer scene in the United States and Canada is evolving at a rapid and unsustainable pace. The structure of soccer from the amateur level all the way up to the professional will likely not look the same in 20 years, just as 20 years ago it didn't closely resemble the jumbled system of leagues we have today. Every day the beautiful game grows more and more. Every day the beautiful game grows more and more and generates a plethora of new fans in different markets. Due to a number of immeasurable factors, such as the accessibility of European soccer and widespread use of social media, 2014 was a landmark year for sport in this country as the United States men's national team generated a mainstream following in arguably the first World Cup that truly captured the attention of the American public. As the USMNT becomes more relevant, so does MLS, and to a lesser extent the NASL, the USL, and the NPSL. It has taken us nearly 20 years, a tiny blip in the long history of soccer, to generate the convoluted system of leagues that make up our figurative domestic soccer pyramid today. As the leagues continue to expand, there is a growing sentiment arising. The idea that the direction of soccer in this country is headed is incorrect. It is possibly the most highly contested debate on the minds of domestic soccer consumers. This debate, so controversial in nature, has been on the tip of the tongue of fans, players, coaches, journalists, and others since the very moment that it became apparent that MLS was here to stay and soccer mattered in this country. It's a debate that has ruined friendships, created real-life internet trolls, and turned a man simply known as Ted into a celebrity in soccer circles. I am, of course, talking about the idea of the feasibility of instituting promotion and relegation in the domestic soccer landscape. Proponents argue that instituting pro-rel is an imperative part of introducing an open soccer system and fostering development. Antagonists will tell you that the idea isn't fiscally feasible and not necessarily an integral part of running soccer leagues in countries that have vastly different sporting landscapes than that of the traditional soccer nations. Regardless, two sides can agree on one thing, that most of the debate has not been well structured and often coming in random, nonsensical 140-character bits. Today we are here to hopefully rectify that situation. Pickup Soccer has gathered a panel of American soccer experts who have done extensive research in order to formulate arguments for or against the introduction of this controversial idea. Representing the pro side for promotion and relegation are Sean Monaghan, a high school and club soccer coach based in Portland, Oregon, and Matt Ream, a club and college soccer coach based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On the con side of the argument are Hank Alexand, host of the Midnight Ride podcast, and Seth Maycomber, Bent Musket staff writer and the New England Revolution beat writer for Total MLS. Over the next hour, Pickup Soccer will ask these panelists a series of questions pertaining to the argument in order to have an intellectual dialogue and to inform our listeners the key points of this important topic. I'd like to welcome each of our panelists and ask them to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Sean Monaghan, who is arguing for the pro side of promotion and relegation.
All right. Well, my name is Sean Monaghan. I'm a club coach in Oregon, and I'm also a high school coach there. And soccer has been my life ever since I was a kid, and I grew up with Scottish parents and tried to play semi-professional in Europe. I'm back here now, and I'm doing what I can to help grow the game here in the U.S. as a coach now.
Let's move on to Matt Ream.
Hi, my name is Matt, and I live in Wisconsin. Been coaching soccer primarily at the youth level for about 10 years, and I've been a fan for a very long time, and it's something I'm very passionate about, and so hopefully I can weigh in on this topic, and hopefully it makes sense.
And arguing against the institution of promotion and relegation will be Hank Alexand.
Yeah, hi, Hank here. Like Evan said, I am a pundit in my own mind, and I am also a soccer coach myself. I've coached the youth level for the last 16 years.
Okay, and then last but not least, Seth Maycomber.
I write for thebentmusket.com. I also write for TotalMLS.com. Also a soccer coach, and I got second place in the Profile Tournament, which is very prestigious in North Country, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Which is that your right profile or your left profile?
So the way that this is going to work is I'm going to ask the panelists a series of questions, and then they're going to respond like reasonable human beings rather than the way debates work most of the time on the internet. So the first question that we have today is, and I'm going to pose this first to Sean, is the way our soccer system is structured broken? Why or why not?
Well, yes, it is, and I'll just kind of expand on it. The soccer system in general, I think, in this country is pretty broken. Without mentioning pay-to-play, which has obviously deprived many families and many players, what happens is around the age of 18, a majority of the talent in this country will go to waste. So regardless of it's a player playing in the development academy, even an MLS academy, a high-level club team or a smaller team. Some players will play Division I and have a solid college career and end up going to the MLS draft. But for most, that's not really the reality. What ends up happening is they end up playing Division II or Division III, and they're not scouted or seen by any professional leagues. Some of the most talented players we have in this country that I know have taken the junior college route either due to finances or grades, while others will work full-time after high school to support their family and are restricted to playing in Latino leagues on the weekends. Due to the system, a majority of these kids, their potential will be squandered by the age of 20. So with that, I believe that I think it would be a great idea to have two different routes that kids can take. One is the college game, and then the second would be either a U20 or a U21 developmental academy league, where teams can play regular seasons and kids can be scouted and looked at. I believe places like Los Angeles could be specifically important doing this if marketed the right way. Now, there's plenty of ways that I think the system can change. We have 300 million people, and we have 54 million Latino. We have 54 million Latino people in this country, where soccer is the #1 sport. We have not even scratched the surface here in regards to professional soccer, and I think that the #1 way we can do that is obviously through opening the system. So I'm going to be touching on that this entire time, but that's just one thing that I'm going to mention right now is, why do we not have a U20 or U21 developmental academy league where kids that don't have the money or grades for college or aren't being seen can use that route to expand on professional careers either in MLS or NASL or USL or even abroad in Mexico?
Matt Ream, is the American soccer system broken?
Broken's a difficult word, but I think it might be the only word we have to define it. I think it's certainly fragmented. I mean, Sean touched upon the system at more the developmental level and the youth level, and I think that because there's so many forces that are not necessarily aligned towards the same goal, you find the grassroots and youth level to be maybe not working towards the overall quality of soccer in the pyramid. At the professional level, it's certainly broken because there's a very specific entity that's in charge of the way things are done, and there are few, if not no, opportunities to get into that first tier of soccer, other than MLS. MLS has a very strict control or chokehold over the proceedings of soccer in this country. One might even argue that U.S. soccer has a hand in that as well.
Okay, let's hear from the other side, starting with Seth.
I think that when you look at soccer in the United States, I think that I'd be shy of using the word broken. I'd more be willing to use the word flawed. And I think that flawed is part of a growing system. That soccer hasn't been around for as long as it has in other countries. So therefore, of course, you're going to have growing spurts, you're going to have growing issues, you're going to have these pains along the way. And the fact of the matter is, as it gets to have more attention, some of these things will start to fix themselves and start to the system will start to become a little bit better overall. I mean, when you look at the higher tiers, not touching as much on the grassroots section here, you look at like MLS, you look at NASL, you look at USL Pro. Those are all leagues that have grown tremendously over the last 5-10 years. That's really important to understand. That like MLS was a questionable thing. Would we even have MLS? Would we even have Major League Soccer? And now we're at a point that we're 20 leagues strong and we're looking to add more. And we're actually denying places pretty regularly was saying you cannot come into this league. NESL is the same type of thing. You look at the Jacksonville Armada. They drew very well for their game against the Philadelphia Union, which they won 3-1. That's pretty impressive. And you see USL Pro, who makes an allegiance and says, in order for us to grow here, we have to connect with MLS. So they make a decision to do that. So the thing is, in order for lower places to develop, it's going to have to be U.S. soccer, and it's going to have to be some of these soccer leagues really helping out. NESL, they had to really grow to get to a point. I mean, you look at what's going on with the Philadelphia Union, and you guys are going to know more than I do as professional youth coaches. But the Philadelphia Union having a youth academy, that's a pretty strong thing. Now that all the MLS teams having youth academies, even NESL teams having youth academies like the Railhawks, that's really great for our development and how things are going. So yeah, is the system flawed? I would say that, but I'm not saying it's broken. I think the fact of the matter is these are growing pains, and eventually our country will grow and things will get better.
Okay, and when you mentioned the Philadelphia Union Academy, were you talking about the residency program that they have in the school?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Hank, is the American soccer system broken?
I think that there are places for improvement, definitely. As Seth put it, I don't think it's broken per se, but we'll say mildly sprained. That I believe there needs to be changes endemic to the way that soccer is developed in this country, specifically at the college level. I feel that that's an issue where that they need to address that. They need to make it. They need to lengthen the soccer schedule for college year-round. They need to emulate the real game as much as possible. They need to do full 90 minutes, no substitutes. They need to make that game seamless from transition from college to the professional level. I think that's a key step. I also think that a key component to the soccer system at the professional level and at MLS level is the concept of free agency. I think that that's a big issue that needs to be addressed, and I think that once that happens, you'll see that right now that actually serves as a deterrent for bringing in talent into this country. In fact, you see a lot of kids in this country leaving for other countries because of free agency, or because of the lack of free agency in this country. So I think that once they get free agency in, you'll see an increase in talent in this country and an increase in talent staying in this country as well.
So I didn't put this question on the list, but we went fairly under time for that section, and I sort of wanted to go back to a point that Sean brought up, and that is the fact that there are 54 million Latinos.
Can I talk to that? I mean, I don't know how we're going to do this format and stuff, but that
sure.
Interruptions are always welcome on Pickup Soccer.
Shut up, Hank. Shut up.
But so you have 54 million Latinos. They're not all playing soccer, right? That would be 1/5 of the population of the United States.
About 1/6, but yeah.
Yeah, thereabouts. All right. So I mean, it was 1/5 when I was your age.
Yeah.
So I don't see that as necessarily as a burgeoning market. I think that those people already watch soccer. The people that watch soccer, the people who play soccer, they will continue to play. They will continue to do what they do today. But the opportunities are not just limited to that. It's limited across the country. The country is so big that you're talking about a country that's how many more times the size of England? Like 15?
At least twice.
It's probably at least 20 or 30 times the size of England.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
So there you go. So you have a much larger population. You're not going to see every single player that comes up the ranks. It's impossible to see that, and I don't know if you could put in a system where you would be able to see every single player that's ever touched a ball. That comes.
But you can. I feel like you can still do it better. And if you're not always striving to do it better than you already are, then what are you doing? If you can't be happy with the existing structure, you always should find a way to improve it and to get better. And that's what other countries do. That's what other countries are constantly doing. You look at the Germans. 20 years ago, the Germans maybe not 20, 10 years ago, 20 years, I don't know, they revamped their developmental system, and they just won the World Cup. So there's that. Mexico did the same thing. Mexico changed it. Sorry, go ahead.
In terms of overall talent, we have the talent in this country at youth level to win the World Cup. That's how strongly I feel. I've seen this in Los Angeles. I've seen this now in Oregon. We have the talent. It's whether the system is going to allow us to, is whether coaching education is going to allow us to, and this is why this is such an important topic to talk on. And the reason I bring it up is 54 million people is a lot. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't mean that everybody's playing soccer. But just like in Brazil or in Argentina, not everybody plays soccer. It's the number one sport, though. So if it's the number one sport in there, we need to, like, we haven't scratched the Latino demographic. If we're specifically talking about MLS, we haven't touched it. And you see when these teams, when Mexico comes to play a friendly in the U.S. or when Chivas or Club America come, it's 70,000 people here. And then when you go to an MLS game, you got like 15,000 people, maybe 10%, 5% Latino. So, like, we haven't scratched the surface at all.
And I believe, so 54 million Latinos in this country, that is larger. 54 million people is roughly 14 more million people than the entire country of England has. And you look at nations like Germany, which is about 80 million people, who are being successful on the international stage, and you often wonder why you don't see Latino players more often at the United States national team level, and I think that's something that Sean was trying to bring in. Seth, do you have any thoughts on this point in particular?
I mean, I guess my thing is that do you guys not see growth? I feel like there's growth happening every single year, every single you have Claudio Reyna rewriting the coaching handbook or whatever he was doing. There's steps, and you see that you have Jurgen Klinsmann, taking over and having this long period of time as both the coach and as the technical director. You see, like I mentioned before, this whole homegrown movement. Like, there's more nets now for us to find these players and catch these players. To go beyond that as well. That you have USL Pro or USL, you have the PDL, you have NESL, you have more opportunities for players to play and to be found. It's not just you have to be D1 and get into a combine. I think there's more opportunities now. Like, you look at a guy like Chris Clute, you look at a guy like Joe Nasco, that kind of rose up by finding their opportunities and getting their opportunities. So I feel like it's getting better. Is it maybe not as fast as you guys might like? Maybe, but I feel like it's getting better year to year.
Yeah, and I agree with Seth there, and I think that there's a key component. If you're looking to break into the professional level, and you need to get seen or noticed by these top guys. One of the best ways to do that is to get involved with one of these academy programs or and I know that goes against you talk about pay to play, and that's a bad thing. And I agree with that. I don't think that pay to play is the right way to do it. But you'll see these fully funded academy programs like the New England Revolution have, which the kids don't have to pay to play, and they get recognized. They get recruited out of other clubs and then brought to the Revolution. And then Diego Fagundes used to play for Boston Bolts, for example. But my point being now is that once you're seeing these clubs get affiliated with the Major League Soccer teams, these lower division teams where they're going to be more geographically dispersed, appealing to smaller markets, those people are going to be looking for talent in those hard to find places, and the cream will rise to the top, and those guys will get noticed and they will be brought up as accordingly. That's my belief.
So I want to.
Can I add one thing on this?
Yeah. I was just going to ask if anyone had any points before we moved on to the second question. Sean, go ahead.
So if the cream is going to be rising to the top, why did, like 2 weeks ago, I saw a kid that was playing with a volunteer coach that has never coached in his life, and the kid went from Salem, Oregon to Pachuca's academy in Mexico without the Timbers even talking to this kid? How does that happen if the cream's going to rise to the top?
It's going to happen. You're right. It's going to happen. That happens at every single.
Pachuca's is the top, right? I mean, it's. Oh, you're saying it has to stay in this country? Okay.
Yeah. And Seth, go ahead.
That's going to happen no matter what job, no matter what area we're talking about. Like, there's going to be, even if you go to the interview, you might not be the one that gets picked. They might not view you that way. I mean, you look at Zelalem, who was, looked at by DC United. DC United was keeping tabs on him. but Arsenal swiped in and said, you know what, we want him. We're going to take him. So you look at these players, and look at all the players that have failed, that coaches looked at and say, this is the next big thing. This guy is going to be the star. And then he ended up not going to develop into anything. So just because he goes to Mexico doesn't mean he's going to be a star. In fact, because Mexico has a little bit more money to kind of splash around, they're able to pick up some of these youth projects and see what can kind of happen there. Where in MLS, it's not necessarily the same route. And I'll use the New England Revolution, for example. They picked up Diego Fagundes and said, we're going to sign you. But with Scott Caldwell, they said, you're not ready yet, so therefore we want you to go through college. Someone could have came in and said, you know what, we want Scott Caldwell, and offered him a contract. But that ended up being a good thing for Scott Caldwell.
Gabe Gissy, recruited by Sac Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Go ahead, John. Just go ahead.
No, so if an academy that's about an hour away is available and he can commute there, he's 14 or 15 years old, and he's too busy going to Mexico, and I'm assuming that they're at least paying for his flight and his time down there. Isn't that a problem? Because in somewhere like Oregon, you're not going to have the talent as, say, Southern California is. So if you have one of the elite players at youth level leaving the area to go to Mexico, it's good for him, so I'm happy for him. I'm just saying, how does that happen without nobody noticing or without anybody caring enough to talk to the kid?
But I don't get why it's a problem. Like he's happy. He gets to fulfill his dreams. They might not have rated him. Maybe that's just the way it is. I mean, you see that in professional soccer all the time. I mean, players are already like established players, and they get cut from their teams. They get waived from their teams. They go somewhere else and they light it up.
But that actually, Seth, you bring up a good point there, because one of the things Sean said earlier was, we have the talent, but maybe we don't have the system and the coaching education. So how do we know that these coaches or these systems or whatever, how do we know that they're actually bringing in the best players, right? Or what do you want to see? Are they bringing in the kids that are just 6'4" and fucking 210 pounds, or are they bringing in kids who can play? And to me, and I've never seen this kid, but to me it sounds like if Pachuca is going to come out and take a risk on a 14-year-old kid, the kid can probably play. He's probably not just an athlete.
He's a goalie, by the way.
Okay, but so then maybe he's good with his feet. I don't know. They're a technical league down there, and that's important. But you talk about these guys are like, oh, how do you know? How do you know that was the player because they washed out or whatever? Well, they probably just hit a point where they couldn't compete at a higher level because they didn't have the tools. Maybe we identified the wrong player.
We can make examples of multiple people that have washed out of the system and gone on to greatness in various places. Look at Jay Demerit, for example. The guy was going nowhere in this country, went to England, made it work for himself, and he put in the hours, he put in the hard work, and he rose to success. That, I think, is an anomaly. I really do. I think when you have
shown, right?
What's that?
I think you meant that he rose and then shone. Isn't that the documentary?
And how did he do that again? Because of promotion and relegation, or?
So he scored a goal that got Watford to the top.
Interesting segue.
But we have one more. Sorry, are we talking about promotion and relegation? We haven't even mentioned it yet.
And it all ties in.
Talking about a broken system in this country, and I think we're all agreed that the system isn't perfect. But I don't see how promotion and relegation is going to help the kid that went to Pachuca get noticed by MLS.
Okay, and we're not quite there yet, but I want to move us on to our second question, and again, we're going to start with Sean. So obviously, Sean and Matt both said that they thought that the system was broken. So question number 2 is, if you do think the system is broken, how can it be fixed? What should the system look like?
All right, I'll give you a proposal. Here's a proposal on what U.S. soccer could look like with open systems. You have, and this is actually kind of a system very similar to what the Spanish system is in Spain, only obviously this country's a lot bigger. So what it would be first division, fully professional, teams travel across the country. Second division, fully professional, teams travel across the country. Third division is broken up in divisions. So like in Spain, for example, what they have is you have one region that's like the teams in Madrid, one region that's in like the Valencia area, one that's in the Barcelona area or whatever. So you break it up, and in this country it would be you know, you have a Southwest region, a Northwest region, an East Coast region, or whatever, a Southwest region. And obviously the third division, that would be, I mean, it would depend on the finances, but at least semi-professional, if not fully professional. And then the fourth, it's broken up even closer. So instead of a Southwest region, you have, for example, a California region or a Southern California region, and you just break it up even smaller, and that way you have 4 divisions, and you know the first two divisions, teams are traveling across the country, and then the third one is broken up a lot smaller, and teams aren't traveling as much. And that would be my solution to open systems in terms of what it could look like, and I mean, that's what it would be. And then to add to that, I mean, the only way we're going to be able to see where this country can go is through meritocracy. Like, that's kind of what our country was founded on, right? Like, the idea that if you have an excellent product, you can go to the top. Whether you're a player, an owner, a fan, it shouldn't matter. You know, we couldn't be doing this podcast right now on Google if Google couldn't, you know, show that their product was better than everybody else. And I think that that's what's made our country, you know, so amazing. And I don't think soccer should be any different. So.
Okay. Matt Ream, what should how can our system be fixed, and what should it look like?
I completely agree with what Sean said as far as an open system goes. I mean, I really want to see teams at least have the option or the ability to move up to you know, be promoted on the basis that they were the best team or best couple teams, you know, throughout the whole season in their league. At the moment, one of the main issues I have with MLS is you got a team that, you know, like the San Jose Earthquakes, that just sucks. They just suck. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? What I want to see is every game be meaningful, right? I want to see players working hard. I want to see, you know, players, you know, fighting for every point, right? If the San Jose Earthquakes can't play good soccer, at least they better care, right? And it doesn't ever seem like that, because by the end of the season, it doesn't matter. You know, all they know is they're going to get like a high draft pick or something, right? And I think if you have that incentive to finish in a certain spot, then I think you're going to really maybe raise the, I guess, meaningfulness of games, and then hopefully maybe the quality, right? Maybe the incentive to like develop your own players if you can't just go out and buy them. You know, like you can't, you know, you don't spend all your money on 3 players. You spend your money developing players on your own and finding that kid that went to Pachuca and things like that, because that'll help you, and you can afford that more than you can afford paying for a huge star. The last thing I'll say on that, sorry, is I think that would make it more of an inclusive system. When earlier we were talking about pay to play, well, that really rules out a huge demographic in soccer. I think at the professional level, it's the same thing, because you have to pay $100 million to join MLS. Plus, you have to have your stadium now. You have to do all this stuff. Well, why not allow a different avenue to get to that level? Why not allow, you know, an NASL team who has, you know, maybe less money but, you know, different resources to get to that level? I don't see why there's an issue with that.
So, Evan, could I add something really fast to that?
Sure.
So I want to say that right now, like, I'm not a fan of promotion relegation, like, right now. Like, I'm not one of those people that's saying we need to implement promotion relegation right now. I see promotion relegation as something that we should be talking about implementing maybe in like 2022 to 2025. That way, if the federation, because this is a federation issue, this isn't a league issue. It's up to U.S. Soccer to decide this. So I'm saying if in 7 to 10 years they said that they're going to implement promotion relegation, it can be done right now, where owners can decide if they're going to be wanting to stay in the league, if they're going to want to stay in MLS or NASL or USL or whatever it is. That way, if owners say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this, they have more than enough time to sell it to a willing owner. And believe me, in a country with over 300 million people, there's going to be someone that's willing to do it. And people talk about how MLS owners wouldn't want promotion relegation. One, it's up to the federation. Two, maybe some what will happen if the LA Galaxy or Seattle Sounders, I'm assuming with promotion relegation, we're not going to have a salary cap. There's no reason the Seattle Sounders or the Galaxy should be handicapped from having a chance to win the CONCACAF Champions League. Because when you have three teams that you have three players that you have as designated players, but when Mexico has a starting when Club America has a full starting 11 of guys making $1 million, how are you going to compete? It's not right. It's not fair for MLS players. It's not fair for MLS coaches to be expected to compete with that handicap. And so I think some teams like the Sounders or the Galaxy or maybe even other teams would like having that because that way they can go out and compete on a global scale and not be limited. So, and then obviously owners in lower divisions would like it because of the chance of promotion. So I think there's something there for both sides.
And to add to that, teams like San Jose that don't have a ton of money to spill around, well, now maybe there's more incentive again to put some money into developing your kids the right way, and then getting those kids a part of the first team. I know they've done a decent job, right? They have Tommy Thompson. I mean, I like what I've seen.
Supporter Shield, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, but
2012.
But the quality of soccer is. I'm not a fan of the quality of soccer. Okay, I'm not. I'm gonna go out there on record.
But they finished the best in the league 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, where'd they finish last year?
So before
I care. It's shitty soccer.
Before I move on and ask Seth and Hank the sort of same question, only the opposite, I want to see if either of them would like to respond to any of the points that Sean or Matt made.
You want to go, Hank?
Oh yeah. So, all right. So there are lots of points that you guys made there about opening up the system, etc., and promoting. First of all, I truly believe that the concept of a team that is going to work its way up. I kind of like the part about the regions, right? I kind of like that part, but we already have Pro-Rel in the regions, right? Bay State Soccer League already has promotion and relegation, and the best teams in the Bay State Soccer League actually get a chance to play and compete for a spot in the U.S. Open Cup. And the U.S. Open Cup, then these players get brought up and they get to play against some upper-level teams at times, and then those players get noticed by MLS, and that's a way for those players to move up without bringing up the whole team. The whole team itself isn't going to have, in my mind, isn't going to have the personnel or the chops to compete at the top level just because they don't have the infrastructure to support it. They don't have the money behind them to support it, and there's travel involved, there's salary involved. These teams just don't have that kind of financial backing. They don't have it. And the other part here is salary cap, I think, is a very good thing. And in fact, I think you're going to see many more leagues in the world adopt a salary cap system and actually move towards closing off that top level league and letting the promotion and relegation happen in the lower divisions, because these owners are out there and they're investing their money into these teams. They want to see their product succeed. They don't want to spend $100 million to buy a team and then watch it go away. It just doesn't make sense. You're going to lose owners across the board that are willing to put money into their teams because of that.
But don't we have like the highest rate of turnovers? Like we've already had 3 teams in MLS be extinct now. I mean, Miami and Tampa Bay and Chivas. I don't think that in an open system the percentage is that high anywhere else. So I mean, we talk about it being.
No, you see teams go defunct. You see teams get wound up. You see teams drop 3-4 divisions. Miami. That's basically the same thing.
San Jose went away for 3 years, by the way.
What you're looking at proves that that we have still an instability in soccer. Every single level so far, you have teams that fold. Like each and every year, with USL and NASL, they have issues with finding teams necessarily. That proves that it's not stable, and you can't have promotion relegation until you have stability. Okay, because you're not going to have any owners that want to buy into this, especially MLS owners, where if they go down a division, then all of a sudden you don't have TV rights. All of a sudden you don't have fans showing up for games. Like, it's going to be much harder to find owners that are willing to put that much money into a league.
But doesn't more risk equal more reward? I mean, if you're
not when your product doesn't want to be consumed. Not when your product doesn't want to be consumed.
Well, does it want to be consumed right now? We got how many people are coming to games?
Not enough.
How many people want to go to a July 2012 game featuring Chivas USA and Portland Timbers where neither team gave a shit about the game? And I was there. I promise you they didn't. All right? It was some of the worst soccer I've ever seen at the professional level in my entire life. All right? And you've got these games in the middle of summer where your marquee players are away doing something else. It's hot as hell. Like, nobody cares, right?
I caught the replay of Burnley versus West Brom this weekend.
Yeah, but those teams are going to be fighting against relegation. So at least the game's going to be intense. At least they're going to be working hard. They're not going to be going through the motions.
But nobody cares. Nobody was in the stadium. Nobody was in the stands.
Was it a midweek game?
I have no idea. But it was empty. It was ridiculously empty. And
was it Chivas USA empty?
Chivas was always empty. I mean, they were one of the worst events.
Not when they started.
They got contracted. But they degraded. And they paid for it. They got contracted.
But the quality of the field stopped being there. Is the point I'm saying. So they had a pretty big backing in the beginning, and then they just stopped winning games. They stopped, like, their players weren't great. And this was not right at the beginning. They had a large fan base at the start, and then the quality in the field was terrible. But they got better.
The quality in MLS is leaps and bounds needs to improve all across the board, and we're not arguing the quality of the product right now. But I think what it comes to is that, you know, you're seeing sustained growth in MLS over the last 10 years. Right, even with the contraction of Chivas, you're seeing the weaker teams fall out because of lack of interest from their ownership, primarily, and not putting the money into the product. But you've already seen people stepping up and putting money down to pick up the slack where Chivas left. Right, so you've got another team already coming into LAFC. You've got people spending money, $100 million to go to New York. You've got people spending money to go to Atlanta, which teams always suck in Atlanta. And yet they're willing to spend money in Atlanta.
In an open system, you don't have to pay $100 million to get into the system. You just go and you do it. You don't have to put that kind of money in.
How are they going to compete with anybody?
Really quick. What I want to ask,
sustained growth, guys. Sustained growth.
I want to ask you guys, why in an open system, right? The difference between a possible open system in our country and a possible open system in other countries is that the reason why a lot of these MLS teams folded, you looked at Chivas USA, you looked at Miami, you looked at Tampa Bay, you looked at when San Jose moved, there was no infrastructure. They didn't have their own stadiums. They weren't an established brand. In an open system, many of the other teams in a lot of different countries have 100+ years of infrastructure, of brand recognition, of all these other things, of tradition. Why? Tell me why our country is different, and it would work. An open system would work in our country based on this. I guess Sean or Matt.
I'll take it. I mean, we've seen, like, I touched on the Latino population, and that's not just the one thing. But I mean, if you look at one of the main complaints I hear from people that watch either Liga MX or South American soccer or La Liga or Premier League, but they don't watch MLS, it has nothing. I mean, obviously the quality, there's a difference, to be honest, but it's clubs versus franchises, and I think what you have is, when I'm talking about MLS just scratching the surface, we have alienated the hardcore soccer fan in this country, and I think what you have is you have the multi-sport U.S. soccer fan who loves MLS, and then you have the hardcore soccer fan that maybe doesn't watch other sports, but they stay away from MLS and they follow the Premier League or La Liga or Liga MX. And if you look at, like, Liga MX and MLS, there's a gap, but it's not a huge gap. So what's the difference there? Why do kids want to grow up and play for Chivas even though they're a total disaster right now in Liga MX, but they don't care about playing for the Galaxy? Like, it's culture, but there's a big difference there, you know?
Thanks for that, Hank. So on the flip side of the debate, for Hank and Seth, you guys obviously don't. You said the system is flawed, right? But it's not necessarily broken. What needs to be improved, and how can it be improved in order for it to maintain the status quo, I guess, and successfully maintain the way that MLS and the other leagues are doing things in order to provide a successful future for the country, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of fixed it there at the end, I think. But to begin with, it's not maintain the status quo. I don't think anyone wants to, keep MLS the way it is or NESL the way it is. It's to continue the evolution of soccer, and the way you do that is by extending the net. You get more full-time scouts for MLS teams and NESL teams. You open up satellite youth clubs and academies to help catch more people. That's the type of stuff that you do. When you look at the MLS, you look at these different leagues right now. They are growing as best they can, but they can only do so under the resources that they have. And the league has grown. They found players like Diego Valeri, and they've brought up stars like homegrown stars like
Tommy Thompson.
Tommy Thompson, Jesse Zardes, and stuff like that. The league has to grow, and that's what's going to happen eventually. So it's about helping out that youth system, helping out and grabbing more players, whether it's domestic or abroad, and that's how better soccer will come to the United States.
I have a question.
Evan, could I have a quick question really fast?
Go ahead.
Sure, Sean. Let's go, Sean.
Are you talking about scouting at the youth level, like looking for kids to bring into academies?
Yeah, and at the professional level as well.
Okay, so why would we scout at youth level, though? Because if you have an elite player and somebody else finds out about him, they're going to be scouted and they can go to Liverpool for free.
Which is already happening.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
but
what's
the problem? He's still American.
Going to Barcelona, going to Liverpool. The kids are going to happen. It's going to happen.
I mean, they can go for free. So why invest millions of dollars in youth money when a kid could be taken for free?
Because then you can grab. Because the problem is too.
It's developing your scouting system, right?
And different kids have different situations. You want to do what's best for the kid. Like you mentioned Gabe Gise earlier. He decides to go off to USL, and he really doesn't play at all. So now he can't. He lost his college eligibility. He's kind of stuck in this cycle. So if he does not develop into the player that he hoped to be, he can't go to college on a scholarship. So sure, there's going to be players that get picked up by other countries, but in order to pick up these players and persuade them that the academy is the best way, or to go through this type of system, go to college is the best way, you have to have better scouts that are able to find these players and identify them and able to persuade them which path might be best. The best path might be for a player to go to Europe. That's fine, because he's still an American. He can still contribute to the U.S. national team, but it's up to what the individual player wants to do.
He might
I
decide to contribute to the U.S. national team.
Hank?
He might, yeah.
What was the question? How do we fix it? I mean, I mentioned free agency. I think that's huge. I think in my opening kind of statement there, I think that if we were to introduce free agency into this country, into the professional league, the top division, you'd see a lot more competition, a lot more talent coming into this country. I think it's a big deterrent, and I think it needs to go away. I also talked about college needs to change. I think if primarily right now, most I think Seth mentioned, Sean mentioned, a lot of these kids are going off to college and they're never seen of again. But if the game changed in college to be a more rigorous program, a more right now I think they play 3 months out of the year. If they were to go for a full 9-month year program and really change the way the college game is played, make it a more as professional as you can before these kids turn pro, then I think it's a much better grooming ground for MLS, for any professional league. And I think that's a big deal, because a lot of kids in this country, look at sports as a way to get that college education. It's huge. It's a big draw. And most kids, don't aspire. I mean, a very small percentage of kids actually have the talent to succeed at any professional sport. They may think they do at the get-go, but quickly wake up to the fact that they're not going to play professional basketball, professional football, or whatever. They might get a good education in college out of it, but if a couple of kids out there get a look by a college coach, and that college coach played soccer with Jason Christ at Duke, then hey, that kid maybe get a call from Jason Christ. I think it's something that just needs to improve overall if it wants to succeed.
Well, I just want to move us along, Matt, really quick, because we are running. We've been doing this for about 50 minutes so far, and
I just want to touch on one thing. I'll say it real quick.
All right, okay. One thing, and then we'll go to the.
Yeah, as far as the college game goes,
but I want to touch on afterwards.
I know that there have been a lot of extensive talks about, at least at the Division I level, and possibly only on the men's side, I'm not 100% certain, about lengthening the season, so making it like a two-part season, which technically it is, but instead of having 20 to 25 games in the fall, you'd play half of them and then have a little bit of a break, maybe kind of like Christmas break in, say, Germany, and then come back and play the rest of your games, culminating in the tournament being, instead of being in the middle of December, it'd be like in, I think, May or June or something. But it sounds like that's something that they're coming closer towards adopting. So it's certainly something that that they're taking into account. So that's all I wanted to say.
Seth, did you have something to say?
No, I was just kidding. But yeah, we'll just keep moving because I have more to say, but let's keep moving.
So, I'd like to ask the last question now, which is, why is promotion relegation right or not right for American soccer? And given our current sporting landscape, how can, and I know Sean touched on this a little bit earlier, but how can pro rel work, or why can't it work? Let's start this time with Hank.
Well, I don't think it can work at the professional level. I think promotion relegation itself is a tool designed to promote parity within divisions of soccer where there is strong demand for the sport. Right now, at the professional level in this country, there isn't that demand. But I do believe that we've seen it. Like I mentioned, the Bay State Soccer League. They have promotion and relegation, and most youth leagues across the country have promotion and relegation. And let's see, even adult leagues have promotion and relegation. And I think it's important at that level to maintain consistency so that competitive teams can remain competitive, and less competitive teams can find a game that's more suited for them. At the professional level right now, I just don't think the infrastructure is there to support it. There's not enough demand for it, and and I don't think the quality is there to sustain it. You could bring up a team that's maybe got 4,000 or 5,000 fans supporting it and promote those guys, but how are they going to be able to afford to go across the country and spend money to compete at the top level? I don't see it happening.
TV rights.
Seth.
You need all levels of U.S. soccer to be stable before you're able to implement promotion relegation. And while there's been growth, it's not there yet. Okay, USL Pro, we're talking about stadiums that hold 5,000, 3,000. The biggest one, the Rhinos, hold 13,000. Okay, you're talking about huge upgrades in regards to that. So you have to now upgrade your stadium. How well can you draw in a place like Rochester? How well can you draw in some of these areas where you already have some of these teams? So I think that you have to create a more stable atmosphere. And I know that Sean mentioned we're not doing it right now. He mentioned 7 or 10 years down the line, but I don't even know if that. I think that's way too soon. And then all of a sudden you're going to have a collapse of ownership where 10 years down the line you're going to say, we're now implementing this promotion relegation. Now all these owners who've been promised stuff are going to leave. They don't want to see that their team is going to be brought to a lower division, especially because NASL or wherever the second division might be, they don't have a lot of TV rights. So you're not going to have a lot of eyes on your product. So therefore, you're not going to be making the same type of money. You mentioned that that some of these teams don't draw well. Well, they're not going to draw any better in a lower division. The way that you start drawing better is through marketing. It's through bringing in better players, and that's through like scouting and stuff like that. That's how things are going to get better. So things are slowly progressing. I think we all agree that the quality in MLS is better than it was in 1996. Okay, or even 10 years before. There's less Connor Smiths in the league. So
that's a shame. That's a crying shame.
So, but that's what we're talking about. Like in this current system right now, and Bill Patterson talked about this too. Like he supports promotion relegation, but he promotes it well down the line because it's not necessarily a stable environment right now. In order for soccer to grow, you have to have investors that are willing to put in the money, that are willing to do these types of things, build stadiums and stuff like that. But in order to have that, they have to feel confident that their investment is going to be worthwhile. They don't want to join a league and then a couple years later they're banished down to a lower league because that's going to really hurt their. Because think about that. You have these teams rising up who now have to get more players. And you already talk about some of these teams don't have great players. Now they have to travel across the country. They have to do all these different things that just really aren't possible when you're a lower division team. So I just don't see it happening.
So before I have to, I'm having somewhat of an emergency right now, and I have to hang up in a second. But I wanted to ask the same question to the other side, and then sort of after I leave, if you guys could just give your we'll just keep the discussion going, and then give the your concluding statements, because I think this has been really good. But yeah, let's go ahead and go over to the other side. And I apologize for leaving, but I'm having sort of a personal emergency. Have a good one, guys.
All right, take care.
I'm gonna guess that's poison oak.
It is. Go ahead, Sean.
I just think that, how can you tell Southampton when they're in League One, or how can you tell Swansea when they're in League Two, or Ludogorets when they're founded, 15 years ago, that promotion and relegation is bad when, Southampton, I haven't looked at the table, I'm assuming they're 5th or 6th right now in the Premier League. Southampton's been in 5th or 6th right now in the Premier League. Swansea hasn't been relegated in a long time, and Ludogorets made the Champions League group stage. So I can't see how you can tell the fans of these teams, hey, yeah, you guys don't deserve the same opportunities that everybody else does. Sorry. We're going to just end this to you. Because what would happen is if we open the system up, we would have new coaches that you guys have never heard of. We would have new players that you guys have never heard of. We would have fans come out. It's a miracle to me that we have 4 divisions in this country, somewhat stable, without promotion relegation. Because there's why even play if you're not going to get better? Why? Why should I coach right now and try to develop kids if I can't become a better coach? Why should college coaches?
How is relegation going to help you be a better coach?
If you get promoted, you go up to the next division and you climb the ladder. There's no ladder to climb. It's not even a pyramid here. It's not even a pyramid.
Everyone has the opportunity to move on except for the team. Players have the opportunity to move up. Coaches have the opportunity to move up. There's an opportunity for everyone to move up. And teams have opportunities to move up, too, if they meet certain criteria. You look at Sac Republic. They have the opportunity to move up. Yeah, it's a different type of moving up, but they have the opportunity to move up.
I think, and that's exactly it. I think the criteria should be: do you have a soccer team? Okay, you have the opportunity, right? And Hank, earlier when you said pro-rel creates parity, I think it does the opposite of that. I think it causes
creates parity within the division that you're playing in. It's all about.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's true.
Then why would you have it?
What do you mean?
Why would you have pro-rel?
So parity to me is when you have one umbrella league that allows certain players to go to certain teams because those teams need those players, and then has a salary cap, and then says, okay, this team had an allocation, so now the other, or let's say this team sold a player, now everyone gets a share of the profits. To me, that's parity. That's parity, right?
If you're talking about specifically within MLS. I'm talking about parity as a general state where you have things being equal. That's what parity means.
So is Manchester United equal to West Brom?
Hell no.
But they're in a promotion relegation system.
Yeah, but when's the last time they were relegated?
1986 or something. I don't know.
It's been
Sir
a long
Alex
time.
Ferguson, before Sir Alex Ferguson, I think, possibly. It has been a long time, but they were not a good team when Ferguson took them over, right? And they were able to climb to the top, and now they have a ton of like revenue from marketing and from jersey sales and TV rights, and that's the thing is
ownership, sponsors, all that stuff.
But when you talk about
soccer doesn't have that in the United States.
It's all about money, 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 money.
Soccer doesn't have that in the United States. I mean, who did Chevy put their logo on?
Wayne Rooney's chest.
Exactly. They didn't pick the LA Galaxy. They know where the eyes are going to be. So
no, because the LA Galaxy picked a pyramid scheme company to put on theirs.
But how does okay, let's say you have promotion relegation and you see the Charlotte Independents who are opening this year. They move up to MLS. And last year when they were the Charlotte Eagles, they averaged 747 fans. Amazing. Good for the fans. The fans are happy. Good like that. Who's going to turn into a Charlotte Eagles game?
Who's going to turn into an Ibar game? Who's going to turn into an Ibar game if they get promoted when everyone expecting them to get relegated? They're doing okay. Like, it's a city of 30,000 people, and they're in La Liga, and they're doing fine. They're mid-table. It can happen.
It can happen.
The buzz increases as they jump up a level, as they have success on the field.
Yeah, they're only going to get more supporters there. I mean,
yeah.
But
I'm already a fan. I got one more supporter. I'm a fan.
If you're MLS, you're trying to grow as a league, and you're trying to get more TV eyes on you, and you're trying to get more attention brought to you. Like, think about this. How many people watched the Chicago Fire game last year? They sucked, and they were bad. Like, odds are if you come up a division, you're not going to be good, especially in MLS, because you look at a place like Charlotte. Who's going to go there? No one's going to. David Beckham's not going to sign there. David Villa's not going to sign there. Big names are not going to sign there. So it's going to be a small team, or a team where like the contract says at the end of the year, if we get relegated again, then I'm out of here. So you're not going to have the stars that other teams have. So you better have good scouts.
Well, let's touch on something. We talk about parity in promotion relegation leagues. To me, I mean, Garber said it first. He's creating a league where owners are not competing with each other. A league where 60% of teams are entering the playoffs. I'm going to assume that 80% of teams in MLS, until maybe the last 2 weeks, they're going to be in the playoff fight. Why even have a regular season? That is the prime example of parity, where like 80% of teams are going to be fighting for playoffs this year. So is it a regular season, or is it just a bunch of friendly games until the playoffs start? Because that's when we really got to play it. That's parity to me. That's the prime example of parity.
You got to play the games to get there. You got to play the games to get there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
but who cares how many games that people are playing for? I'd like to
play games off. I mean, isn't that the criticism against something like baseball or basketball? They play so many damn games. What's the point?
You got to play the games to get there, and I love the idea of having
you don't have to compete. You don't have to compete. You just got to go through the motions.
I love the idea of having a cup tournament where you actually have to qualify for that cup tournament. And that's the way I view MLS Cup. The whole thing is qualifying to get to a spot where you're selected to represent your conference in a cup tournament.
Okay, so let's compare this.
Playoffs.
Let's compare this. We have 60% of teams in MLS that go to the postseason. Compare that to Atletico Madrid on the same budget as Fulham getting to the Champions League final and winning La Liga. So every single game that Atletico Madrid played in, they had to be at top form. That was the only way that they could compete with Real Madrid and Barcelona. Yep. You don't have to be at top form to become the 12th place team in the playoffs. You're gonna get to the playoffs. It's a complete different thing.
You still have to be good enough to get through.
But at the same time, though,
mediocrity, though.
Yeah.
The reason why
I would hate being 10th.
The reason why the playoffs expanded is because that's where MLS makes their money. That's where like people start to pay attention, is because it's exciting. I don't think if you have promotion relegation that anyone shows up anymore during the midsummer games. Like it's still a situation of marketing. It's still a situation of getting people there. Like they're not any more interesting. I mean. Yeah, they mean a little bit more, but to a casual soccer fan who doesn't necessarily like soccer to begin with, they're not any more interesting. Like that's the problem, that people see MLS and they say the quality isn't as good, and they'd rather watch something else. And they say, I'm a European fan. It's not going to get anyone out there more if you say that Chicago's facing Montreal, and guess what? They're both at the bottom of the table. doesn't make it a bit more exciting.
See, I think it would be really interesting because if you do have promotion relegation and you have a single table, what you could do is say the top 4 or 5 teams in the regular season get to go to CONCACAF Champions League. That's a good incentive to be at the top. Obviously the bottom 3 would get relegated. So obviously you're going to have teams that are maybe 9th to 12th place that are going to end up not really playing for anything. But a majority of the teams are either going to be fighting for CCL, they're going to be fighting for the league, or they're going to be fighting not to get relegated. That makes the entire season way more entertaining than having 60% of the teams qualify for the playoffs. It makes it. I think that the product itself would get better because players have to obviously work that bit harder. The coaches have to make sure that they're on point, and it just gives everybody. I mean, I would love to watch a relegation battle or a Champions League battle. With MLS in it. I mean, like teams fighting to become first or fighting for that 5th spot to enter CCL or fighting to avoid relegation. It would make for really good stuff, and I think that people who aren't even MLS fans would kind of catch on to that and be drawn to it.
I don't know. I look at Toronto, and Toronto had this huge buzz when they first came in the league. Everyone loved them. They loved the idea of what they were doing. Their season tickets were great. And then when they started to get bad, people stopped going. Like, we want to see winners. We want to see teams that are winning, and I don't want to, like, it would be interesting. It would be interesting to me as a soccer fan. I'm here on a Saturday night or Sunday night talking to you guys about soccer. But for a casual person, you go and tell them that we're going to go watch 2 teams at the bottom of the table face off. They're going to say, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to drive an hour to go see 2 bad teams and one team's going to be in the lower division? Are there going to be supporters that show up? Yeah, obviously. There'd be supporters that you could put the game, at midnight on the moon or whatever, and they'll still find a way to get there. There's avid supporters everywhere you go, but a casual soccer fan does not get turned on by the fact that, hey, we're going to watch 2 teams that are terrible face each other.
Yeah, but why is this marketed to the casual fan? It needs to be marketed to the educated fan, to the people that we're not hitting at the moment. And not only that, but those people will actually understand the value of the game that they're watching, whereas the casual fan probably doesn't know any better, even if it's a top two teams playing each other or the bottom 2, other than the fact that you said this is an important game because they're the best teams and it's the playoffs, right?
Even the educated fan's not going to show up because the quality isn't as good in their mind. They don't view it as good.
I like watching MLS, though, but I would just like to see some changes because I think it can get better. That's because that part of me always, whenever I do something or I'm into something, I want to know how can it get better, right? As a coach, I'm always looking to push myself and to find better opportunities and better levels where I can improve, right? And this is my country. I care about soccer in the United States, both at the professional level and the international level, and I want to see it get better. And I don't think that's the direction we're headed right now.
But when you look to go get better, you look within yourself at what can be better, right? You don't look at revamping the system. You don't fire yourself and hire someone new. You don't just start all over again. You look about how to incrementally get better each day, right?
I'm not content with mediocrity. If I'm just going through the motions, coaching, and whatever, and I'm not, really taking advantage of every coaching point, and I'm like, oh yeah, we played like shit, but we won. That's fine. No, that's not okay to me. I have to always make sure that it's the top level. And it's higher pressure because that's where I think I perform better and I want to improve myself. Anything that's higher pressure.
Do you think that U.S. soccer is not getting better?
Wait, sorry, you guys both spoke at the same time.
Hey, you can go if you want.
Go ahead. I was just saying I don't understand how promotion relegation helps you in that fight. I still don't understand how
as a coach or us as a country?
As a coach.
Because if I do well enough, let's say I have a team that can get the chance to be promoted, and that to an extent that is the case in some leagues in Wisconsin, right? So let's say I have a team that won our lower division, whatever. Now the next spring or whatever, now we have an opportunity to play at a higher level. The quality of play is higher. The speed of play is higher. I am, as a coach, now forced to educate these kids to a higher standard. I'm forced to make tactical changes or read the game faster, so it pushes me as a coach, right? If I stay at the bottom level and coach kids who can't walk and chew gum at the same time,
you have the opportunity to move to a higher team. That's the thing about this country. You don't have to stay with that team. You could get a job.
I like the ownership of having developed something along the way myself. If you gave me all the top kids in the U.S. right now, and I coach them, it's like, oh, great, we won, but like how much impact did I really have? That's the thing about being a coach, is I like to have the impact and to be a part of the developmental process in those kids. And I don't do that if you just put me at the top level. I haven't gotten there. I haven't earned that.
So in a promotion relegation system, if you get promoted to the top, you're going to have to say goodbye to those kids that you brought up because they're not necessarily going to have the top skill to compete at the top. You're going to have to get new players to come in.
Not all new players, though. Not all new players.
Look at Orlando City. How many players have they? Like, there's been some in the last year because they knew they were coming, but a lot of those guys, their captain Rob Valentino is no longer with them. He goes to Arizona United. Like, that's just the progression of things. Like, once you move up to a higher division, you have to get better players. That's the way it works.
Yeah, but I think there can be. I think there can be both. I mean, Ibar have a lot of their guys that they were playing with in the 3rd division, not even the 2nd division. But at the same time, they do have some guys that they added from La Liga. So I think that both of you guys are right on that aspect. I think that you can have both. One thing I'll add here is we talk about the ownership and the money, which are all great talking points. How about the coaches and the fans and the players? Do you guys think players are going to want promotion relegation? If they're going to be on my team, they better want promotion relegation, because that means that they're going to have to perform at the top level. If I'm an owner, my coach better want promotion relegation because he needs to be on point every single game. And the only way that you can do that is have a system where it orders you to be at your very best.
I think the fear of being fired, the fear of losing your job is big enough.
You get relegated to being fired.
Okay.
You get sent
DC
down.
United won 3 games, and DC United won 3 games in, 36, and Ben Olsen didn't get fired. So I don't really think that's that scary.
But
3 out of 36 games. No firing.
And then he came back and he was the best team in the East the next year.
Yeah, because they got all these incentives and things from the league to keep them on that level. The league wasn't like
nowhere else would that happen.
Yeah,
nowhere
else
would
just
it happen.
Going down
in the 2nd division. So.
And the people that are responsible
would get I think he proved his worth as a coach by using those players effectively and doing the right thing by them and winning. He took the tools that were given to him and he made the best out of it.
I agree. I agree with you there. I agree with you 100% there. That's awesome.
But even DC's roster wasn't that bad. The problem was that a lot of his guys got injured, and he hired Carlos Ruiz, which was ridiculous. But like when you lose Pontius, when you lose De Leon, when you lose all these big names within a given season, you're not going to do well. So he did well the season before. He had a bad year, slightly marred by injury. You're right. He took what he had and made the best out of it. But it shows that it was the right decision to keep him afloat.
If you didn't have a salary cap, you would probably have other players that were more capable of stepping into those guys' place.
I think salary cap will never go away, and you'll get free agency, but you'll always have a salary cap. I think it's a big, important financial instrument that the ownership will never ever let go of because it's one of the few things that keeps this league somewhat solvent.
It's their safety blanket. It's their safety blanket.
Don't overspend on players. And you saw what happened. I mean, people on Twitter are going nuts right now because they've been riding me hard all week because I keep going back to the ways. But you look at what happened in NASL, right? They don't want to see a repeat of that, and that's the main reason why they have a salary cap. I don't think getting rid of the salary cap necessarily equates to promotion relegation either in any shape, way, or form. I think that they're two separate, different conversations, and I think free agency free agency and salary cap are closely aligned and more closely aligned than introducing promotion and relegation. But I think it's over and over the same thing. We can keep beating the same points into each other's heads. Do we have what was the final?
That was it.
I'll get a chance. Was that it?
Should we each have closing comments and then end it up?
Yeah. That sounds good.
All right, go ahead, Seth. I'm gonna go last, so I sound like I'm right.
I'll go first, and then we'll alternate.
You're gonna do a pro-rel sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna alternate. Okay, never mind.
Or we can alternate. Last. Well, Seth doesn't have to. Sean should go last. He's the one who called this thing together.
He should go first. He's our guest.
Well, let him go last. He gets the last word. He's our guest.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. So my thing about promotion relegation is promotion relegation was founded when you had too many teams playing at the top level, right, in England. And the professional game grew out of years of playing in this structure, right? In this country, it's opposite. We have the professional game, and it's taken a lot of money and a lot of time and energy just to build up a sustainable league, and the amount of money and time invested into this league is too precious to introduce something like promotion and relegation. It's you'd see an abandonment of ownership. You'd see ownership turnover. You'd see teams basically becoming insolvent because the ownership isn't strong enough to keep the league afloat. And that's my key thing, is that promotion and relegation grew out of necessity in England because of the overcrowding, really, of soccer teams in a very condensed area. I think you have the exact opposite here. It's not something that is well suited for the American environment.
Matt?
All right. Well, I will make a point that it's not just England that has promotion relegation, but I mean there are a lot of I don't have a number and I can't tell you how many, but there are a lot of leagues or a lot of
Over 200.
What's that?
Over 200.
Leagues or countries? Countries?
Countries, yeah.
Okay, so then there's probably something like 800 leagues, right? If you count top to bottom. I mean, there are a ton, right? I mean, a lot of people are doing it that way, right? And soccer is an international game, right? And I think we can learn a lot by studying the models that have been in existence for a long period of time, right? Yeah, we're America, we're different, right? But every country is different, and a lot of them are doing things in a very similar way. So that probably says something. I'll just say that I would like to see a lot of changes, right? Promotion, relegation being one of them. Okay, maybe not immediately. I like the idea that Sean had. We can time it for 2022 when we end up hosting the World Cup, and make it into a big thing, whatever. But I would like to see a lot of changes because I'm not happy with the way the current system is structured on a number of fronts, not just promotion, relegation, but developmentally and the quality on the field and decisions off the field, things like that. And I'm not content to just be. I would like to see us be better. I would like to see us improve. I'd like to see us work towards something that eventually would maybe culminate in us winning a World Cup, right? Or winning a CONCACAF Champions League is probably a more realistic goal in the near future. So that's all I'll say on that.
I think that promotion relegation is a fun idea, but I just don't see it as a realistic idea in the United States. And a big reason why is because soccer support just isn't there yet. We're competing with baseball, we're competing with NFL, we're competing with all these different sports that aren't found in other countries. Soccer is not embedded in our nation. There are diehards. There's no question about it. I'm not saying that there aren't good fans in the United States. There's good fans in every single city in the United States. Like, look at all the different chapters of American Outlaw. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to fill out a stadium. Like, you need to get to a point where you're a Seattle, a Portland. You need to get that type of fan base. You need to get that regularly out there. And I don't see promotion relegation doing that because you look at the different markets, and they're not really sustainable markets per se. They're not necessarily markets that are going to be ready to make the jump to the next division because they're not going to draw in the quality of players. They're not going to necessarily be equipped to have the stadium deals. If we get to a point in the United States where lower division teams are drawing at least 10,000, they're on TV every week, then that's the time we start talking about promotion relegation. But right now, when you are talking about making sure that teams get MLS teams, first division teams, get out a steady group of people each and every week to make sure that the TV ratings are growing each and every week. I mean, you look at the TV ratings for ESPN2, there was a huge dip after David Beckham left in the TV ratings. Okay, so you see that star power matters. It's clear that it matters. Like attendance goes up, all that type of stuff goes up. So that kind of stuff needs to be happening. You need to have stability in U.S. soccer before you can even consider promotion relegation. So since we have no idea when there's going to be stability all throughout the pyramid, we don't even know who's going to be Division II. We might have 2 Division II teams with USL applying for it and NASL already having it. Like we don't have a setup that we can start even considering promotion relegation, because even once you get promotion relegation, like you say we're going to do this, you can't do it immediately. It has to be way down the line. So you have to get stability first, and then you have to think 10 or 20 years down the way. So I just don't see it happening. I think it's a fun idea. I think it would create a ton of excitement and stuff like that. But I think that MLS is already trying to do that by with the playoffs, by having a last day, a decision day where all the games are happening at the same time, by having a U.S. Open Cup and that final being on Fox Soccer this year, and there actually being a realistic bracket. Like there is development happening in MLS and U.S. soccer each and every year. So I don't think we're stagnant at all. I don't think this is the status quo. I think every single year, and I think everyone would agree that every single year MLS gets better. The play gets better. There's more exciting storylines to follow. But it's just not ready to have promotion relegation.
And I'll add by saying, one of my original things was saying that I think MLS has done, what they've done is they've really alienated 2 different demographics of fans we have here. One is the U.S. sports fan that likes soccer, which is awesome, and then the second would be the hardcore Mexico, Liga MX or European soccer fan or South American soccer fan, whatever it is. So I think that MLS, the target market for the most part, has been the U.S. sports fan, and I think they've done an excellent job marketing to that person. At the same time, though, I think that they've alienated a lot of the huge soccer fans in this country. With regards to promotion and relegation, we've seen, obviously, Russia's a bigger country in terms of size. They have promotion and relegation. You have countries like China that have much larger populations, or even countries like Brazil, where maybe they don't have the population, but it's a heavily, densely populated country. It's a big country, and they all have promotion and relegation, whether soccer is the #1 sport like it is in Brazil, or whether it's like it is in Russia, where there's multiple sports, or China, like there is multiple sports. So it's been done before in other countries. In terms of on the field, I mean, we have promotion and relegation in the U.S. right now. We have it, and it's not even in soccer. Like right now, this phone I have right here, this iPhone, this wouldn't be available if the system was completely shut off. Like, there's meritocracy involved where Nokia, like, if they're not creating a good product, I'm going to end up with an iPhone because Apple are going to run the market. And so my thing is, how do we know that we have the best product when there's no competition? You have to compete in order to see if we have the best owners, if we have the best coaches, if we have the best fans even, if we have the best media. And I think promotion relegation enables that, and I would love to see it in the U.S. because the game is so big here already. Like I can't explain how big it is, but also how much talent we have in this country in terms of player quality. So I mean, like I said, this isn't something that I would support implementing tomorrow. This is something I see in 10 years, and it's something that I think we absolutely need if we're going to be a world-class soccer nation, which I think we can become. And at the end, I guess I'd just like to finish this off by saying all these ideas that I want to implement, the main goal for me is for us to win a World Cup. And these are the ideas that I think give us the best chance to win a World Cup. And nothing would make me happier than seeing this country win a World Cup. So, and becoming a top league in the
not even Scotland.
we can't talk about Scotland right now.
All right, sorry. Sort of subject. My bad.
I think obviously we could go back and forth for another like 3 hours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think obviously
do that.
We did a good job of trying to break down the issue. Obviously, it's a very controversial issue, and obviously, judging by my mentions, it's a very passionate issue and things like that. But I appreciate you guys taking the time. So on behalf of Evan, who is, I believe, very close to dying of some sort of weird disease, I'm Seth. He is Sean. He's Matt, and he is Hisco. Alejandro. Thank you for watching the Pickup Soccer.
And thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. It was great.
Thank you, Sean. It was awesome.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Hold on. Let Hank hang up, and then we can swear at each other.